For some reason, we're embracing communism, which is atheism, which takes away religion altogether, even Islam. It takes everything away, and we're embracing this. We're embracing the abolition of the First and Second Amendment, free speech. We're afraid the gun is going to just jump up and kill us. No, if you know anything about Nicholas Cruz, his mother was a drug addict, and she had 2 children, Zach and Nicholas. And she had Zach when she was in prison, and the same couple adopted both of those children. Well, the mother took a tremendous amount of drugs. So when Nicholas and mother were forming in the womb, the baby's brain was being bathed in a bath of toxic chemicals. And at the age of 2, Nicholas Cruz threw the infant, the next door neighbor had an infant, threw them into the pool. He was displaying crazy behavior from the beginning. This guy had a whole history, and the FBI knew all about it because people were calling the FBI. Everybody at the school knew about it. They said, if anybody's going to shoot up the school, it's this guy. He brought ammunition to school, for God's sake. We know this was going to happen, but we say it is the gun's fault when it's actually Stephen Williford. Remember that Texas church shooting? He was an instructor of the NRA, and he had to go home and put his gun together to go get what's his face. I forget his name now. It's a Devin or something like that. He's the one who took him down, but he had to go home and put the gun together because by law it has to be all locked up and then put together. But he's the one who stopped that mass killer using a gun. So we say it's the gun when it's really demented people in society that we already knew were demented. And 39 times the law went to Nicholas Cruz's house, was called out, and nobody did anything. And neither did the sheriffs. They just stood outside and listened to the gunfire. They didn't go in. You or I would have grabbed their gun. If I saw him, I don't know how to use that gun, but I'm grabbing your gun. I'm going in there, and I don't care if I get killed. I'm going to hide behind a post, and I'm going to shoot. I've seen movies. I know how they do it in movies. I'm going to do it. Even if I get killed, I don't care. But those weasels, those pussies, just sat outside and listened to those children get killed. So we say it's the guns. So we're letting our Second Amendment. You know, the reason why the Revolutionary War was fought is because they were going to take our rights to own guns away. That's why that's it. That catapulted the revolution. If my basic point, what I'm talking to you about is this electoral college, it's going away. It's happening. It's already happening. If we don't take action like we fought the Revolutionary War, if we didn't take action, the monarchy would be taxing us to death. Well, we're being taxed to death as it is now. And they would have taken our right to own guns away, would have had a much different country. It wouldn't be the country of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and our rights are given to us by our Creator. Man means human, cannot take our rights away. Okay? This would not be this America that it's constantly, even though it's had its faults. You know, the Democrat Party did bring over slavery. There were slave owners, slave traders, KKK, and Jim Crow. You know, the Democrat Party, you know, they do have their faults. God love them. So America had its faults. We had the Democrat Party. But we know what the truth is. We know between right and wrong. We know between good and bad. And we're getting to a point where the Democrats, the socialists, are telling us what good and bad is. And good and bad is now the opposite of what it used to be. They will tell us that we're bad, even though we're not bad. Up is down and down is up. That's what socialism is. But we know in our hearts what good and bad is. And this country has always known what good and bad is. And we've been moving forward. And when we I didn't vote for him. When Obama was elected to office, when people went in that booth to vote for him, they thought they listened to what he was saying. But you know what? I researched this guy. I already knew the dope on this guy. I already knew about Bill Ayers and Obama's past and how he felt about this nation, especially when John Edwards and Hillary Clinton and the big American flag and anthem was being played, and they had their hands over their hearts, and Obama had his hands down by his side, and I saw that. This is the president you elected, clearly a socialist who hates America. It happened. It happened. Now I lost my train of thought. Yes, we thought we were going to eliminate racism forever. See, it's over. But most people are ill-informed. Most people, when you get on the internet, there's a lot of sites on the internet. And the art of the internet is knowing which sites are bogus and which sites aren't. So the people that you listen to for your information, everybody I listen to for my information, these people really know their stuff. They have, they've got experience in the fields they're talking about, and they really are experts. And so when they recommend a site, okay, I'll listen to that site. But you have to know when you look at these sites, which sometimes they look very credible and they sound very good and they're set up very well. And most of the information is right, and then there's something bogus in there. Kind of like the New York Times and the Washington Post, how they're constantly always, they have a headline, and then about 15 paragraphs down it says source anonymous, and they're saying something about Trump and Russia collusion. It's bogus. So some of these sites look very credible, and a lot of the information, oh yeah, that's right, then they slip in something that's totally wrong. You have to know the difference, and you have to know how to judge these sites. And everything I put in my head, I make sure that I'm listening to a valid source of information, somebody that really knows their stuff and is consistently right and does have a background of experience of some kind in a field that's respected. You know what they're saying is right. Yeah, I listen to a bunch of old men, mostly old white men, which are like, oh, old white men. They know what they're talking about. They're experienced in the field. Most of them are old white men. Women usually, I listen to the radio most of the time. And because when you listen to the radio, you are thinking with a different part of your mind. You're imagining something. If you are watching something all the time, you go on YouTube and you say, oh yeah, this one looks good. This is interesting because the visuals. Well, we're so used to visuals, and Hollywood has poisoned our minds. And because they've fed us so much information through visuals that we see so many things, and it's going into our brains, and we're not registering how they're screwing with our brains. And we don't know how we're registering this, or all of a sudden we start thinking differently. And it's because of the visuals that we've seen. If you're listening to something, you listen to it, it goes in, and then you think about it. Your brain perks up, and you think about the information that's coming in. If it's a visual, you can literally be brainwashed. That's what visuals do to you. So I listen. Most of it is the radio. I rarely watch TV, and I've totally lost faith in Fox. Remember Fox, the election? This is very important that you know this. Remember this. Roger Ailes, they forced him out. And then Murdoch, because he was the one who basically put Fox together. He was the real conservative part. So trying to bring a fair and balanced thing, Democrat, Republican, all sides. That was his thing. But he was conservative, and Roger Murdoch's sons were handed off the reins to run Fox. So Ailes is forced out, then O'Reilly is forced out, and then you see all these people leaving Fox, and you hear through the grapevine that it's basically Murdoch's sons are Democrats, and Murdoch's really a Democrat, but his sons are real Democrats. And at that time, I realized that Trump might never be elected again, because this is one of the major news organizations that a lot of older people listen to and they trust. And if you change your whole, you think you're listening to the conservative side or the reasonable, fair, and balanced side, and then they start changing a little. It's like the frog boiling in a pot of water. You boil slowly. They slowly start changing over. And the other day, Tucker Carlson, we know about Biden. The big thing that bothers me more than anything is how he fondles little girls. I even saw a picture of him today with his hand over the crotch of a baby boy. This guy is absolutely out of his mind. Tucker Carlson apologized for getting on the bandwagon of calling him a perv, and he had this female expert on. I didn't even register her name, and she was talking about how we've changed the society, that the touching used to be good and wonderful, and what he's doing is not sexual assault at all, which makes me wonder, what did you do, Tucker Carlson? What have you done in your life? And how many other people at Fox have said, ooh, what he's doing isn't sexual assault, lest they come after you. It's changing. And once in a while, Tucker Carlson, you think, what he's saying is great. He sees the whole picture. He's very intelligent. He used to work for MSNBC. He used to work for a lot of these left-wing organizations. I don't think you can really trust Tucker Carlson that much. But he comes on, and he's been married to the same woman since he was 20 years old, and wonderful family. And I admired him at one point. I said, this seems like a nice guy. He's kind of a nice-looking guy, too. But then he would slip things in that made no sense. Basically, this is like upside down world. And what happens is you start slipping in things that don't make any sense. And then all of a sudden, you're slowly changed over into a different way of thinking, because you trusted that source. And we have to really be careful. Everything that we listen to, we have to make sure that the source is trusted. It isn't just some crazy blog, because people post on blogs and they say all sorts of nonsense things. Some blogs are right, some blogs are good. But you don't know who these people are that are posting on these blogs. You have to really know the source and know the history of the source, how credible they've always been, that they've always had, and in their hearts, the good of this country, the good of America, the dream of America. The founding fathers, what they dreamed and envisioned for this country, and the rights that you have rights. All men are created equal. Man means human. That are endowed by our Creator. No one can take them away. It is based on a Creator. It is based on a Creator. Your Creator gave you these rights, and something larger than ourselves endowed us with these rights. Who you listen to must be firm in these principles and not be an anything goes, because an anything goes could go the wrong way, could go socialist. But the firm principles that our founding fathers began this country on, that rock, that Plymouth Rock, supposedly, they put their foot on. If you've ever seen Plymouth Rock, it's not exciting, but supposedly they put their foot on it. But the rock, the bedrock of this nation, the truth, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we're losing it. And we are losing our electoral college. And I will put the link on that article. PJ Media. It's a faith-based media, and they're very honest, and it's a good source, and many of the people I listen to actually go to that source, and the people I listen to are usually 99.99% right. And if they're wrong, they will tell you the next day they're wrong about something. But they're usually always right. Otherwise, they'd be taken down because they're conservative. They would be taken down immediately. These left sides they'd be talking all day about how wrong they are. So they can never be, these people can never be wrong because they will be taken down immediately. They have to be right about everything they bring forward. So this is a very good news source that you can trust. And I suggest reading the article for yourself and really think about it. It's happening. With Ohio, it will be 207 electoral votes given to the one who wins the popular vote. And from now on, the popular vote winner will be the one who wins California, and that will be Democrat. And within 5 years, there are teenagers that will become voting age, and a lot of them are from illegal immigrant communities that are guaranteed Democrat voters. So Texas, within 5 years, we're going to lose. So what does that tell you? There will never be another conservative or Republican president. This will no longer be a republic. Once you abolish the Electoral College, you don't have a republic anymore. A republic speaks for the minority. A democracy speaks for the majority. If the majority wants slavery, then you will have slavery. There's no guarantee that it's going to be a moral decision. It's the outliers. It's crazy Hollywood, the entertainers, the people in the media, the mainstream media, people with all the money, and all the immigrant or migrant communities who live mostly on the coast that are going to be speaking for all of us and don't have the American. They will always invoke the American dream and how everyone in the world has the right to the American dream, but they'll take the American dream away from us, and they will destroy America in its wake and say, hey, you got to let these people in. They deserve the American dream, but wait a second, I deserve it too, and I'm not getting it. And the people of America aren't getting it. And if you have these outlier populations that are speaking for rural America, the heartland of America, then the heartland, that's it. America's dead. Once you kill the heartland, the heart of America, and the heart beats no more, you've got a country that's ruled by the outliers. Fake Hollywood, New York and Hollywood. That's both the media and Hollywood, both sides. Crazy Broadway. They will speak for the heart, and they will kill the heart of America. It's going to be over with. I would not get on camera and tell you something sensational or put some kind of sensational headline and you listen to it. This was clickbait. If I'm telling you that this has happened, I listen to the news all day long. All day long I'm listening to the news. I'm checking out sources. I'm on the computer. All day long. If I tell you that there is something we need to be worried about, then there is something we need to be worried about. There's something that, like the revolution, if we sat back, England would have taken all our guns, this would be a monarchy, and we would be, like we are now, oppressed. Because our country has been given over to socialism. It's been spoon-fed to us. It started with FDR. He prolonged the Depression and made people disillusioned with capitalism, and people were dependent on the government for jobs. That's where he had the New Deal, and that's why the Black people who used to vote Republican went over to the Democrat side. It's because the government was giving people jobs. You can't make it on your own. You can't think on your own. You don't make the right decisions. You need to be controlled. The government has to take care of you from the cradle to the grave, and you'd be nothing without the government. That's what FDR did. He was fond of fascism, which is a form of socialism. I say this over and over again. He sent the brain trust over to fascist Italy to learn all about fascism. He was a socialist, okay? And that's when it began, and it made people disillusioned with capitalism. This is when the whole socialism thing started to come in, and it permeated Hollywood. And within the movie, the structure of the movies, they were selling you socialism because we get blinded by the visuals. We're not hearing the truth because we're blinded by the visuals, and slowly it's being implanted into our brains. And that's why we have Ocasio-Cortez in Congress, and we're listening to Beto O'Rourke and Maxine Waters, and Ben Johnson with the whole Guam tipping over. If there's too many people on one side of the aisle, of the island, it might capsize. We're listening to this, and we voted out of fear. We voted Obama in a second time because he put the fear into any conservative group that the IRS was going to go after you. That's what he did. That's how he won this. He did it that's what a dictator does. They rule by fear. They rule by fear, and that's how he won the second time. If we don't stand up and do something and take action and say no, you see, it's only the states that are always Democrat. Well, these are only states that will always be Democrat that are hooking onto this bandwagon, and their electoral votes are going to be awarded to the winner of the popular vote, which will from now on be the Democrat, because California will make up as many fake votes as possible. Okay, Virginia, this is the reason why Virginia turned. See, Obama was bringing these people in, they're coming in from over the border, and he flew them or bused them all over the country into counties and planted them, even MS-13 members, into counties that were purple, that were about to go blue, and now they're going into red states, turning them purple. This is what they're, so there's no guarantee, it's only these blue states that will always be blue. So no, these states will always be blue. No, these states are changing over. This is a long process. This has been going on for a long time. That when these people are coming in, you see, even the people working at the border now, they call their head, they call the top guy, and they say, this person is claiming asylum. The guy on top that they're talking to says yes to every single one. You want to know why? These are still Obama holdovers, and they're the ones giving the okay, bring everyone in as an asylum seeker. And then we bus them and fly them all over the country to turn the purple states blue and the red states purple, eventually blue. On July 7th, the WAPO, Washington Post, had an article about Terry McAuliffe, which was a Hillary supporter. And for her sake, this is what he did. He changed the way the whole voting system was. When you registered to vote, you had to do it you had to do it in person. Now you can send it through electronically. And there's two boxes that you had to check. You had to check that you weren't a felon and that you were a citizen. He changed the law. You could be a felon and you could be not a citizen. By simply saying the law changed to you didn't have to check the box. And people say that, Virginia is changing over because people from Washington, D.C. are spilling over into Virginia because these Democrat-run, the District of Columbia is not a state, but anything Democrat-run, the taxes are really, really high because there's a big welfare population, because they bring in a lot of minor migrants, non-citizens. And so people are moving into the states that used to be red, and they're piling in. And there's over 8 million immigrants and migrants, refugees, in the state of Virginia that are not citizens, but he made it so you didn't need to check the box. That's the reason why, and they say, She won by over 200,000 votes, and there was about 200,000 felons that just got the right to vote back. Interesting. But there are over 8 million people in that state that are not even citizens. And he did that for the sake of Hillary Clinton. So these states that once were red are changing, and people are leaving California in droves because it's a sanctuary state. It's got a high welfare population. The taxes are too high. So the Democrats are leaving there and going into Texas and turning Texas blue. So they're making Texas what they left. They left this hellhole, but what they're doing is they're leaving in droves, going to red states that are run more efficiently, like Florida is run less than half the budget of New York City, but New York City has got a big welfare population. And Florida doesn't even have a state or income tax, and yet they get more money in tax revenue. So the way the Democrats run things is screwed up. So these people are leaving these states, but they're flooding into the red states that are run better, and they're voting Democrat. And what's going to happen? What's going to happen? It's going to be more than this 207 if Ohio flips and goes to the person who wins the popular vote. As we know, that vote is bogus and it's completely made up, totally manufactured. There are 3.5 million more voters on registered voters than there are live adults. That means there's something really, really wrong. Don't you see that the tipping point? It's not going to be that much longer. Trump is in there for this interim, and maybe we've got 2 years left. But do you see how, with all the information I just gave you, how this is going to tip very quickly? And there's nothing we can do about it, because the powers that be are the powers that run the world. The EU is an unelected body of government which dictates the life and death of children that could leave those countries and go for medical help, but then they say no. No, you can't leave, you must just die. And you can't even take your child home to die, like Alfie Evans and Charlie Gard. We know these stories. Because it's communism. What does communism does? There isn't enough health care for all, because there aren't enough doctors. And to be a doctor, it takes a lot of training and a lot of medical innovation. It doesn't take, if you have a socialized state, there isn't the money to begin with for the doctors in the hospitals. There isn't enough, and the state says just about how much you can consume, how much food you can consume, how much clothes, everything is dictated by the state. I remember seeing a PBS special while Obama was in office, so we know PBS is left-leaning. They were talking about China and the way it is in China. China, the rivers, the waters are all polluted because the runoff of these factories that have opened up in China. We drove all our factories out of this country because of all the regulations, because we care so much about the environment. So we drove them into these other countries that are being polluted now, where there's no regulations on carbon emissions or pollution into the water. That's how much Obama cares about the environment. Bunch of bullshit. Anyway, they interviewed this woman. See, in China, they allow regular people to go in and vote. Like, oh, you've got the right to go in and vote. And they think they're going in and they're actually voting for the laws. They're voting, they're participating, and they're thinking and they're making their own decision. And it's a free republic. It isn't communism. But what happens is, you're sitting there and they tell you that you got your thing in front of you, ready to vote, and a man comes out on stage. Of course, the big swastika, the hammer and sickle, which kind of looks like a swastika, is there. And the guy comes out, and she says, "Yes, it is my mind. My mind. I voted. It was my decision. I listened, and he told us if we vote this way, this is what's going to happen. And if we vote this way, this is what's going to happen." So what the guy does is, whatever the Communist Party, however they want you to vote, they tell you how great it is if you vote for what they want, and how bad it will be if you vote against what they want. So I made a decision. What he told us what was good, and he told us the other way was bad. But it was my mind. I made the decision. No, you didn't. It make the populace thinks that they actually have a hand in this. They're so brainwashed. And this is what's happening to us. They're telling us guns are bad. Freedom of speech is bad because it's hurtful to people. But that's what freedom of speech is. It's to protect speech that is not nice speech. And sometimes we need to know the truth. And the truth can be hurtful. That's why we have a protection for our freedom of speech. I'm good in this now. Thank you for joining me. This was going to be very short, but I got into a lot because I needed to show you the big picture of why you need to be careful about the sources that you listen to. That we can't, turning on YouTube and then hearing somebody say, oh, everything is fine, it's going to be all right. Oh, this will never happen. Oh, they said that this will never happen, it's going to be all right. If you imagine if you sat back, oh, Hitler won't take over the world, neither will Japan. These things will never happen. Don't worry about it. You know what? Sometimes if you can't just depend on a news source that's going to tell you, don't want somebody to freak you out unnecessarily, but you also don't want to be lulled into submission. You don't want to be lulled into a sense of, oh, everything's okay. Oh, nobody will ever go for socialism. This country will always be free. This will always be a republic. It will always be capital. No, not unless freedom isn't free. And the reason why we were given the right to form militias is if our government gets too big and too corrupt, the people, we hope by peaceful means, stand up and take our government back. That's what our founding fathers said. Don't let our government get out of control and become corrupt, losing a little bit of freedom for protection. You get neither. And that's what we did when 9/11 hit. We lost our freedom for a little more protection, and we got neither. It got worse and worse and worse. So unless we stand up and say no, there's no guarantee. You see the crazy people in the street. You see people wearing pink pussy outfits. I mean, they're screaming in the Antifa dressed like ISIS out there beating up people in wheelchairs. And the fact that our freedom of speech is being taken away, and unless we stand up and do something about it, we're gone. No. People are saying okay to communism. And they think that Ocasio-Cortez, oh, she'll go away. I've even heard some YouTubers, oh, she'll go away. Somebody else will pop up if she goes away. Socialism is here. Bernie Sanders almost won. And he thinks breadlines are good. And he thinks that women fantasize about being raped by a bunch of guys. And that he cheered when the Castros took over Cuba because the people rose up. No, a dictator rose up and oppressed the people. And now it's a country that is it's right down the middle. The blacks and the whites are separated. The prisons are full of black people. They hate black people down there. The people didn't rise up. The people don't have anything down there. Che Guevara, mass firing squads. You think against the leader, you're put in front of a firing squad. If you're a homosexual, they were all killed. And Bernie Sanders, you think he's like this grandfather that's innocuous like a balloon on a stick? He's more dangerous than the rest. 3 years ago, I heard this guy's got 3 houses and he's a socialist. He cares for the people. What are you talking about? He wants to be on top. He wants to be a dictator like all the communist dictators. He wants all the power. And he lulls you into this submission. Oh, yes, the people have the power. He sat on a couch until he was 40 years old and then worked for the government. He doesn't know anything about work. He doesn't know anything about the people, except for sitting on the couch and picking his nose and drinking a Slurpee or something like that and smoking pot, probably. You know, not for the people out there who can smoke pot are fine, but this guy shouldn't have been smoking pot. He was a do-nothing, and he wants to be the guy on top that's got everything. And that's why you want socialism, because you have a dictator that the elections are no longer free. They're all fixed. If you have, we have an election. No, you don't. It's all fixed. You have an unelected body of government. No, he's not innocuous. And whether Calzone or Cortez, whatever her name is, whether she comes or goes, they'll bring someone else in. It's being spoon-fed to us, the poison. It's not being the poison isn't being spooned to us in a spoonful of sugar. We're being spooned poison, and we're accepting the poison and saying that it's good. And there is no sugar. There'll be someone else if there isn't Cortez. Good night, everyone. God bless America, and keep it free. We have to actively keep it free. Thank you for listening.